In the design world, every single movement has been a rejection of the previous movement. The modernist movement was a rejection of old world values and a response to the Enlightenment. Postmodernism is a response to that, telling the modernist movement basically that no, we don't know everything. We can't figure it all out using logic, and some things need to be felt or not even explained at all. And we live in a postmodern world now, so most people don't even know what ideas we're coming up with. But this is all to say that we need to start rejecting some things that we've held dear in the past. One of those things is creativity. I know as a child I was always raised with the idea that you have to be creative. You must be creative. Coming up with new things is the most important thing you can ever do. But I don't really feel like that is all that important now. And I feel like it's led a lot of people kind of to disconnect with themselves, really, or to become down on themselves when they can't come up with something new. But in my experience, almost everything that you come up with is a response to something you've seen. Similar to how those movements are just responses to the last one. You can't have the postmodernist movement without the modernist movement. You can't have the modernist movement without the classical movement. These things are all cyclical. They're all based on each other. And creativity is based on that as well. You don't have to sit in a room by yourself and come up with a new idea or anything. Just go outside, watch the butterflies fly around. I was actually outside for about half an hour before I came in, sat down, and was inspired enough to record this. So, all that to say, you don't have to be creative in the normal sense of the word. Creativity comes from outside of you. It doesn't have to all come from inside. You can look at things and be inspired by them. You can scroll on Pinterest, that's okay. You can see ideas that people have done other than you and use that to get a jump start on this. That was the inspiration for this channel. Anyway, it was one of the creators I've watched recently is called Nico, and he started with a simple title, a Minecraft gameplay, and just him talking about some sort of topic that has inspired him for the day. And that's perfect. That's exactly what I want to do. I'm going to make it my own, of course. That's where the creativity element comes in. And by the way, everyone is creative in their own right. Everyone has had an entirely new experience, an entirely different experience than every other person in the world. Even if you have a brother. I have an older brother, and he and I are very different people. But we lived in the same household. We were exposed to the same things growing up. He's only 2 years older than me. That's really not all that much difference in the cosmic scale of time. So why did we end up so different? It's a mix of all sorts of reasons, and that is an entirely other argument by itself, whether it's nature or nurture. But anyway, he's a very different person than I am, and I'm okay with that, and he's okay with that, of course. And that allows us to get along. If we were exactly the same person, I'm sure we would not get along as well as we do. And we, growing up with a brother, if anyone here has had a brother, I'm sure you're aware that growing up is not easy when you have a sibling. I tend to get my butt kicked a little bit when I was growing up, mainly because I was annoying him. I'd go into his room or whatever. But why did he and I end up so different? That's where the creativity comes in. You don't have to sit in a room and get all up in your head about, I can't come up with something. I can't design something. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't do my homework right now. I have to think of something. There's too much to do, so I can't think of anything. That's a big one. There's always so much to do in this environment that we've created for ourselves. I mean, when in the entire history of humanity has someone had to always be responding to people instantly on their texts or phones or DMs or whatever, or reading YouTube comments or anything like that, watching a video constantly? When did boredom become non-existent? I feel like anytime we're bored, it's because we're doing stuff. When TikTok becomes no longer fun, which it's really not designed to do that, it's designed to keep you engaged for as long as possible, which that's a topic for another day when I'm brave enough to talk about it. But anyway, when we've realized that we sat there for 6 hours and scrolled instead of coming up with something by ourselves, that's when something becomes an issue. So, and TikTok is not inherently bad. I've come up with a lot of things from it, but you know, when you sit there for a whole day, that's when you really feel that creativity is dead. That's a good title. I think I'll name the video that. But anyway, creativity is dead, or I believe that it should be, at least. You don't have to impose that rule upon yourself. You don't have to say, I must be creative or I'm not good enough. I must be creative or I'm not going to get a job. I'm not going to get any requests for art. I'm not going to get any video edits done if I'm not creative. This video must be perfect. Coming up with all sorts of new ideas, it must be perfect. I know that's an issue I've had in the past, and I'm rambling on about this, but it's mainly because I really feel that we don't need that anymore. We've kind of grown past that. It's time to reject that, which isn't a bad thing. The Enlightenment helped a lot of people realize a lot of things, and it inspired everyone to think by themselves, to think for themselves. There were a lot of problems with the Enlightenment, I'm not going to say that, but it did help most people to restructure their lives. And the postmodernist movement also helped people restructure their lives, telling people it's okay not to have to use logic for everything. Wow, imagine that. We've kind of rejected that idea even nowadays. If you're not logical, whatever that means, you're seen as or deemed as crazy or out there in your thinking. But it's okay. I mean, it's not very logical to, do everything that we're doing. It's really not. I can look at the world and say, oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. And that's because it is crazy to me. It is crazy to see all these things going on in the world when it might seem logical to someone else. So anyway, this is a very strange ramble that I've gone on, but to kind of bring it home a little bit, to kind of wrap it up into a nice, give it a bow or whatever. Creativity is not necessarily what we thought it was. It's not what you think it is. It's not what you're opposing on yourself. It's just you. You are already creative. It doesn't require any magical power. You don't have to bend spoons with your mind or anything to come up with a creative thing. You don't really even have to set yourself apart through the creative process anyway. Anything that you feel you can put down on paper and be happy with, or even be unhappy with, you put it down on paper, that's an action that only you could have done. So go out there and do something that you might not have themed or might not have thought was creative before. Go grab your Word document and just write something. Write an essay. You don't have to get a grade on it, although that's what we've kind of taught everyone, to hate essays. An essay is just a word just fart all over the paper. That's horrible, but you know what I mean. You just open up and it's your thoughts right there on the page. And maybe you can read it in like a day and cringe all the time thinking about like, oh man, I really thought that. Like, no way. And maybe that's what I'm going to do with this video or another video, but I'll look back on it some other day and seem, wow, that guy was crazy. But that's okay. Again, going back to the whole brother thing, he and I are very different, and that's because we exist in different times. We exist on our own little island, and it's okay for that. That's truly all right. We don't have to end up the same person, and just the fact that we didn't proves my point. There is not anyone in the world like you. So use that to your advantage. Find what really makes you tick. Look inside yourself to figure out where your creativity lies. And then use the external world around you and synthesize those two ideas. You have your own thesis in your head. You've got your antithesis on Pinterest or whatever inspiration board you use, and combine them. Put them down on page. Record a video. Do something. Design a building. Who cares? I'll talk to you all next week, or maybe 2 days from now, whenever I record the next video. See you all later.